And people online? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for coming. Let me just get, once it's not happening. Call the meeting to order with the quorum being present. Are there any requests to amend the agenda in any way, or is it okay as submitted? I'm not hearing any requests, so I'll assume it is okay as submitted. First item of action item then is the approval of the July minutes. Questions, comments, clarifications?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, anybody have anything on them? Hearing none, they'll stand as approved. Back to, there are no communications from the public that I'm aware of. The president's report, let's say, is subsumed in the executive committee, so we can go right down to the executive committee action, which is in the folder. And there are a couple of things. The one clear action item we did was approving 6,800 to purchase the new printer. As you see, 5,000 has already been earmarked, and it's a 1,800 new allocation. That was as requested by Tom. Grant, you want to say anything about item 2 on the update on the calendar items?
Yeah, there's some detail in here, but big picture, we've got a bunch of the committee meetings are in the new calendar. There's a link to it there. They should have access. There's a few committees that don't have meetings in there yet. I think some of those don't have maybe meetings scheduled yet. As part of connecting with chairs, I did get some feedback from fundraising and social media that maybe those shouldn't be work groups anymore. I think there's some ongoing conversation about that, and we'll be discussing it some more at policy and bylaws next meeting. So there may be a recommendation in the future around those kind of work groups, but largely we're getting most of the events into that calendar. So thank you for everybody that's done that.
Thank you. And then 3A2, you see the issue, and I sent an email yesterday about this, explaining the executive committee's thinking on this was that we would start meeting monthly on the Thursday before the meeting in order to go over the agenda and reflect and make recommendations regarding the action items. And in order to do that, we would be asking board and staff to submit their items and reports and action items by the Wednesday. And now is the time to discuss that. And the operative verb there was ask. The operative verb was ask. So we appreciate the extent to which the staff has substantially complied with our request to get them in by Friday. Thank you very much for that. And the question is, over the period of a month, how disruptive to the workflow would it be to make that a Wednesday so we could meet on Thursday?
I mean, my knee-jerk reaction was it's just moving the bar again now that we've complied with that bar. I mean,
can I make a suggestion that might help? Just like a middle ground, maybe? To think about.
Well, I mean, we can try it. I mean, there's going to be things, missing from our reports from the remainder of that week that we may not know yet, whether or not it matters, whether it waits till the following month's report.
Well, let's step back to first principle. Does the rest of the board think it's important for the executive committee to meet and review these items before it gets to the board meeting, or is that irrelevant to you? And if you don't want us to go through that, then we don't need to do this. Yeah, Jeff.
So this was that you answering your question goes to the middle ground I was going to suggest, at least for staff to think about, which is it's really action items that I think the executive committee needs to know about in creating the agenda. And so if staff can think, and I don't think it's too much to ask a week before a board meeting to say, if you have an action item that you want the board to ask, even if your whole report's not ready, because we don't need, I don't think the executive committee needs the whole report to make agenda items and also for our board. Obviously, still want to get it by Friday just so we can read them before, but
Let me hear from Doug and then Grant.
Yeah, I personally really like that compromise because I understand the need for action items. But also I have things that are late breaking all the
Right.
time in my position. And I want you to be the most informed about what's been going on in my position and I know staff all agrees on that note. And I think it's a great compromise personally to do action items by Wednesday and full reports by Friday
Okay,
in case anything
Yeah.
has changed.
I'm good with that. I'm
For
good.
me personally,
Yeah,
that works great. I know we have one other staff member here too.
Yeah,
I like that too.
I
Yeah.
think I think that's a good idea, Grant.
Yeah, so I think for one of my goals as a board member would be to have kind of a clear date and time by that where an agenda is set out and it's a complete agenda and everything is linked there. And if that goes out, to me, getting it out on Friday makes sense. I think having it for folks to look at over the weekend is a good goal. Maybe we need to talk about when on Friday, but the goal of executive meeting on Thursday was to be able to make sure that a full, complete, fully attached agenda goes out on Friday. So if we have, agenda or action items could be helpful for determining if there are like additional agenda items that need to go on the agenda. But if we continue to have agenda goes out, but we're missing, 4 or 5 reports, and then I review it on Saturday morning, but then I have to know to go back and look again on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday to see the reports, that doesn't feel ideal to me. So I guess I would still like to figure out when does the board want kind of all of the reports and a final agenda to go out, and then getting reports in before that so that they can get loaded in.
Doug,
Yeah, I mean, the reports would still be available on Friday. Whether or not they're linked in the agenda, they're still in the folder and available to all the board members. As soon as they're uploaded by staff, they're also emailed to reports. That's also part of the process. So all staff reports are going to also be in your email in the Google Drive folder, as well as whenever the agenda is finalized, it's linked here. And I know it may be cumbersome to have to look through email or to look through into the drive itself. But maybe if the link to that month's meeting folder was shared in an email to the entire board, it wouldn't be so arduous to try to find the right folder where all those reports are contained. And I'm wondering if that would be a helpful.
have you guys, just a question, been linking? Are you the ones who are linking your reports to the agenda?
We couldn't this month because that was not available.
Oh, because you changed.
normally
everything
do.
else.
I did some of them.
So at least in the
Yeah.
past, it had been done. Okay.
Well, like last month's agenda, there were many that were not. I mean, so
I understand,
don't
but
know.
just as a practice, if, and it's certainly something we could ask to say, hey, staff, if you also simultaneously, which I think at least most staff were doing, link it.
Phil has his hand up in the.
Right, there's an access problem now to that document though, to where that availability to edit it no longer exists.
We'll talk about that too, but Phil and then Grant.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that, and I don't want to feel like I'm piling on Nicole's job as secretary, but you did an excellent job with the minutes from last month, Nicole. And what if, as secretary, Nicole takes responsibility for making sure that either all the reports are linked or that there is a link in the agenda to the appropriate folder or something of that nature.
Grant.
Yeah, so I mean, the proposal by executive committee to have it in by Wednesday for executive to review and the secretary to finalize the agenda on Thursday to be able to send out on Friday was meant to accommodate that. If we have a situation where reports kind of trickle in and there's not a defined timeline, it is going to create more work for somebody, for Nicole or for whoever is going to do that, to kind of pull everything together. The other issue about sort of access and a changing agenda is that we really need to get to a point where we have an official agenda that goes out that isn't subject to anyone editing it, adding things, again, especially after people have already reviewed it. So I think it's important that as a board, we do get to a point where we have an official agenda that's sent out at a moment in time, and that it includes everything that's going to be there. Things can be added after that, but that should really be the exception to the rule. So I think the question of whether it's Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, what I would really be asking for is that we actually we get a deadline, everything gets in, and then whoever's responsible, if that's Nicole, to get those all pulled together and sent out, that the board can expect that it's going to happen at a kind of fixed time each month.
Remember, we've been operating for 25 years under a policy that says I'm supposed to mail this out 6 days before the meeting. I mean, that has been what the process is supposed to have been. And, you know, we've devolved to a system where people can put on agenda items Wednesday morning and no one is prepared and they're on the agenda. So that's what the executive committee was trying to standardize. So board and staff and volunteers, because we're also going to share this with volunteers, would know, oh, this is coming up. The meeting is next, and be prepared. That was our thinking. That was our what we want to accomplish. Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, and I also feel like circling back to Jeff's proposal is that the important thing to have 7 days ahead is the agenda, which includes action items. An agenda for a board meeting does not include reports from staff because they're not generally commented on. I mean, everybody's reading them over the weekend. So I don't see why there's an urgency when, I mean, what goes out to the public is just a list of what reports are available, not the contents.
No, the contents are part of the agenda. All the attachments need to be.
I agree with Doug, actually. I don't think reports or agendas, items.
If they're on the agenda, the information needs to be, it's part of the agenda. It needs to be
I
available.
appreciate that we disagree.
Well, what's the sense of the body? Should whenever it happens, I mean, and I'm good with the Wednesday is the time for action items, Friday is the time for reports, but do people believe that the reports should be available linked to the agenda and that people who get the agenda should be able to read the reports? Right now, we have a disagreement between.
Let me be clear about my disagreement. I think it's great that the reports are available to the public or whoever gets the agenda. I am not saying, make them disappear or anything from what I'm going to say, call our agenda. I don't believe in general, organizationally, that reports without action items they're just that. They're reports. And reports can come in, all of us, I believe, in general, I've been neglectful. I'm trying to get better, and I will follow the new rule for committee chairs about getting it a week in advance. But it's just a report, and you can read it at any time. It might be interesting to read after the meeting. There won't be any action taken because of it, because it's not an action item.
Okay, I side with Grant on this. As we're in charge and there's something that we need to ask about, we should be able to, we've got the staff representative at the board meeting, we should say, Doug, what's going on with this? And Grant is also talking about there being, perhaps rather than individual staff reports, a collective report, just one report from the collective but Doug.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that I don't feel staff reports should ever be available to the public at large. Oftentimes they contain sensitive information about volunteers that should not be shared with the general public and should only be shared on a board level. Secondly, we are still providing all of the staff reports in a timely manner with Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 5 days for board members to read them.
Yeah,
I mean, there already is a standard for reports, and that hasn't changed. The the Wednesday proposal, and they can be added into the agenda
The-
on Friday.
I don't think Grant or I or I'm not sure Nicole's thoughts or Tanya's thoughts, but I don't think we're still pushing for the whole report on Wednesday. I'm good with action items on Wednesday, but we have a disagreement on whether or not staff reports are publicly accessible. Jeff says no, Doug is very firm that they should not be. I'd like to hear what other people have to say about this, because it's a pretty important point.
Yeah,
Nicole?
I think the report they're given to the board at the board level. If they were meant for volunteers, they'd be in like the volunteer newsletter. So I don't think they should be publicly available in a link so that we still get the information that we need as a board, which are already being included in reports, sorry, I missed the meeting where we talked about this at the executive level. So I think the action items by Wednesday is great. Friday, reports as usual. And I personally, as a secretary, like giving the staff access to edit the agenda, to link the reports is fine. Giving anyone access to that, at least, because you can see who changed what. Like Google
Right.
Drive will tell you
Yeah.
who's changing stuff. So if someone's adding stuff in there last minute, we can be like, hey, we agreed to this. Like, I think we can all, because we'll just have the access be board and staff, which is what it is now. And then locking it down, in my opinion, is like an unnecessary red tape for it, just because we can see who changes it. If someone wants to add something, I can get in there and change it myself, if once we agree on it. But I don't think we need to have this hard deadline of restricting access to things that have never been restricted before.
Let me ask a question. If something is in the board folder,
Mhm.
who has access to view it?
Depends on if there's a board folder and then a board and staff folder.
Well, the board and staff folder. Who has access?
Board and full-time staff.
Okay, that's all.
That's all.
Okay, so what you, what-
No, that's not true.
That's not all.
Not even close.
I think there are like a couple, like David Devereaux Weber, I think has access.
Mary
to-
Joy, there's a lot of
Yeah,
people.
there are other.
let's say are members of the general public, but
No.
nobody outside the broader legitimate
Right.
board. Okay, so,
Dave is a legacy because he made the drive
yeah, yeah,
and there's no way to get him off of there.
Yeah.
because He's the owner.
okay.
That's not true.
Mary Joy was well, then we can revisit it, Grant.
Yeah.
Mary Joy was added because there's no other way for her to upload
Okay.
financial
Okay.
reports without having access.
So what you want is that the reports be in the board folder, but not linked in the agenda.
No, because that's fine, because if someone outside of WORT tries to click on that link, they'll be denied access because they're not part of the
Well,
folder
no,
that
a
they live
WORT
in.
volunteer, if someone with a WORT-FM.org email clicks on gets a copy of the agenda
Yes.
with hot links on it, and the agenda includes links to the reports, can they access the report?
No,
Okay,
You'll click
because
the
they
link
do
that's
not
there.
have access to the drive they live in.
okay, so
Only the people with access to the drive where they live have access.
so there's no problem in linking the reports on the agenda.
No,
Okay, I thought, okay, I'm glad, Grant.
Yeah, so, as far as I understand, open meeting laws, Wisconsin open meeting laws don't apply to WORT.
Correct.
I've heard that there are some requirements from FCC stuff that requires some amount of public notice, et cetera. I don't know what the specific rules around those are. Our bylaws and our policies, have been very clear that our meetings are public, agendas are supposed to be published in the station, et cetera. And the spirit of everything that I read in all of our, practices is that we have open meetings for the public, and obviously including our volunteer base. I think it's very bad practice to put things on the agenda that on a public agenda that people don't have access to. If there's sensitive information, it should not be in a report that's linked on the agenda, even if we can access it and other people can't, because then they click on it and say, where is this? They want access to it, and we say, no, that's private information. If there's something that's sensitive, it shouldn't be on the agenda. It can be shared via email with directors in a confidential way. And if we need to discuss it, we need to go into closed session about it. But I think it's a really bad practice to put sensitive information that might apply to volunteers in a report, put those reports on the agenda. In theory, talk about them here in open session, but then pretend like they should be sort of private and not available for volunteers or anybody else that wants to look at this information.
Doug and then, thank you, Doug and then Jeff.
The reports by staff are only part of the agenda as reporting to the board as the supervisory panel for our positions. We have to report our activities on a monthly basis. This is the method that we use to do it. Staff report items are not generally points of discussion by the board at board meetings unless there's a specific question. If that specific question has to do with a portion of the staff report that's of a sensitive or confidential nature, that is moved into closed session. But the report itself is for board eyes, not for general public. The general public can be privy to the conversations we have about those reports, but the reports themselves are for the board.
Yeah, but the general public is not going to have access to the reports, as I understand it, even if they're.
Yes, but they have access to the conversations through, attending a board meeting or
Okay.
listening to the audio afterwards.
Right,
They'll hear the discussions about board reports,
right.
but the reports themselves are for the board's information about how we're doing our jobs.
Okay,
It's how we report to you,
right.
but it isn't like an agenda item
But it is.
in the sense that, no, it's informational.
Phil has.
It's not a point of action. There's two different things.
Phil and then Grant.
Yeah, I agree with Grant's larger point, and I think that some of the miscommunication between the point Doug and Grant are trying to make is that Grant is simply arguing for a clear distinction with anything of a confidential nature being included in staff reports. At the very least, I agree with him that when we are, for example, talking about a volunteer issue, that should always have a caveat in the staff report that this is a confidential issue and that it is not for discussion during the open board meeting.
Let me, thank you. Let me suggest this. We got some more important stuff to talk about. We've got a clear indication that requiring staff reports by Wednesday is not the right way to go, but requiring action items by Wednesday is doable. Yes, Doug? Action items by Wednesday is doable?
It's a more agreeable compromise, yes.
Okay, and why don't we table the rest of this discussion to see what's, just a second, Tanya. Maybe after we've gone through a meeting and had the committee reports and staff reports, we'll be able to reflect better on this whole thing. But I don't want to take up more time right now on this internal procedural matter when we've got substantive stuff to do. Tanya?
What if the agenda item was just discussion of staff reports?
Yeah.
And then there's no A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
On the agenda.
Agree.
Okay, that might be a good solution. But is that okay if we table this for now and go on to the rest of the agenda and come back and see where we're at when we're done? Okay, thank you. But we did get the message on Wednesday for action. Oh, okay, it's a thumbs up. Okay, then moving on to, was there anything else on the executive committee that I needed to address?
The planning retreat, proposed next steps.
Oh, yeah.
That might be a larger discussion too, so I don't know if you want.
Yeah, why don't
circle back
we,
to that.
yeah, let's put that off to the end.
Sure.
Okay, then moving on to the finance committee, which met up until 15 minutes before the board meeting. So Grant.
Yeah, I've just linked our agenda and notes there. There's some, I'm sorry, just click on it. I think we had a good kind of condensed meeting. We got a little conversation with Nick from Numbers for Nonprofits. agreement that we should be moving towards being a little bit more intentional with our capital budgeting and facility needs planning. So we've got some action items to work on that. We talked about the 2025 budget to actual, clarified that the loss of CPB funding will not impact our 2025 financials, and got an update from Nate around some of the changes to cut some of our losses related to the restricted funds. Had a good conversation about 2026 budget planning. There's a link to a budget process and timeline. Essentially, staff will be bringing a proposed budget to finance. We'll send that a week before the September finance meeting. We'll share that out with the board. Finance will look at it again in October and then send a recommended budget to the board for deliberation and approval at the November board meeting. A few other sort of follow-ups on items I don't need to go into, but people can look at. We've got the June financials also linked there. And we'll be focused really on the 2026 budget at our next meeting. But no, we also do have some conversations to have around our financial dashboard and reports.
And when did you want to have that conversation about the thing you talked about near the end about the various options?
Yeah, I think we got agreement around the kind of, we'll have the information for finance, so I think we don't need the.
Okay.
Yeah, Nate had a good suggestion of kind of having multiple options, so I think we're sorted on that.
Yeah.
The whole high interest yield thing has been a bugaboo the entire time I've been on. And I noted what you said about it. I'm not going to go into it, but what I also noted was that we were perhaps, and I think we should be, considering CDs, and we don't have to worry, businesses can get them. We don't have to worry about individuals holding them, et cetera. They will yield high interest, and most bank specials are actually relatively short, 7 months, 9 months. And if we stagger them, they will be relatively liquid. We have a lot of cash on hand. Even if we can make 1% extra on $562,000, that is $5,600 that we don't have to work for other than some paperwork, and I understand. So I just would really encourage that we maximize the cash on hand with no risk, not looking for any risk. And if we stagger them, I don't think we'll have an inconvenience of insufficient cash on hand. Obviously, you don't do it with all of it or anything, but no.
It does look like we have some good options for a high yield account that we can get probably even higher than CD rate right now.
Right.
So
If we can do that, then
I know it's been a long-standing item, so we're going to push to get a solid recommendation by our next finance.
Right.
Yeah, and I would just like to add to some of the concerns surrounding the high yield interest account that we have with Ocean View. Those fears were allayed by Marissa. WORT does own the Ocean View account. It just needs to have a name on it of a real person. If something happens to that person, WORT is already the beneficiary. So a lot of the concerns surrounding high interest yields prove to not really be,
and that's actually
justified. So that's why, especially today, we decided to go forward with high interest yields, because the interest rates are just so much better.
All right, great. Then let's just do it.
That, and it's completely fluid. You can take out $100,000 a day.
Do it.
So yeah, we are doing it. So insurance is doing it. We're doing it after long last. You'll never have to hear Tuck pointing again.
Anything else?
Promises.
That should do it.
Personnel committee report.
Just quickly, everybody knows we heard Nate. We're in the process on the donor relation director. There is some concern about whether we'll get qualified candidates.
We have one
I remain optimistic that
who
we
is
will have
willing to move to Madison.
more by
Yeah.
the deadline, because that's why we have deadlines, right? A lot of people just wait for deadline. And last but not least, after some negotiation with the union, we're moving forward with the evaluation process, hope to conclude by mid-September. I just want to tell you, for those of you who saw my back and forth with Susan, I have spoken to Susan. We're okay. We just have a way of communicating sometimes. So I have nothing else to report. And Grant, to his credit, has gotten us a regular meeting, and on the calendar. So
Thank you. Any questions of Jeff on the Personnel Committee report? Okay, thank you. Moving down to policies and bylaws. Another active meeting. Grant, you were responsible for most of this stuff. You wanna?
Sure. I think big picture, we really kind of took a step back and talked about kind of big picture organization of our policies, trying to track down all the ones that we think are active, the most versions, working towards getting them into one place. There's sort of a shared drive that Shali still owns that we're working to get access to. There's another folder, another place. But we've got, there's a WORT subunit matrix in there. There's also there's a link to the folder, and then there's also a number 2, a policy and regulation inventory. That inventory is a spreadsheet that has kind of our best knowledge of the current policies that are out there, as well as dates when they were approved, et cetera. So we've got a lot of policies that were last reviewed in like 98. So I would say big picture policy bylaws is trying to get a handle on the overall kind of organization and status of those policies, and we'll likely be looking to different groups and individuals to help review and make some updates on a number of those policies.
Doug?
Yeah, just a question. Have you tapped into the old mail server for yeah,
Might need to talk.
I need to show you something.
Okay.
Because I know where all the old stuff lives. When we got that.
If I don't get back, you know where to find me.
No, but I mean, like, if Word docs of things that you have in PDF would be helpful,
Yeah,
things
yeah,
of that
cool.
nature. I've got the
The old-
big archive
Awesome.
of old policies from the station.
So yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's fun reading. Let me.
Work in progress. There.
Any questions of Grant or I and on any of this? None. Julia?
Yeah, so the report's in there. We spent much of the time talking about a proposal to add another member of the board of directors to the programming committee, which was voted on and declined by the committee. And reasoning just includes there was just some fairness concerns, and just the programming committee itself has a process that non-board of director members go through to be a member. And there was a concern about if there is a one-to-one, if the process for being on the board is one-to-one with the process of being on the programming committee. And I don't know if those two processes have been scrutinized in that detail before. So that, along with a few other reasons, we declined to add another member of the BOD to the programming committee. So we spent much time discussing that over the last 2 meetings. Something else of note is that I was just formally made the chair, so I'm the point person. If anybody is wondering, you can talk to me and drop my phone. And I think that pretty much sums it up. Oh, Nate discussed BBC programming ending, so we chatted through that and suggestions as to how to meet that need. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Carlos, anything you want to ask or say about?
No. Just looking forward to be part of the conversations of the programming conversations. That's all.
Yeah, and so I'm also interested in talking in this group about what was discussed in the future task force group. And I think that that'll play into it as well, because in that space have been all sorts of excellent suggestions for programming changes. So we'll get to that in a moment. But
Do you want to go to that now? Because I mean, it's just.
yeah, if you'd like to.
Just an item or two. Yeah, the task force, the future group had a really interesting meeting Monday. I don't think my draft minutes fully and accurately described everything about it. And you'll see there's some email going back and forth taking issue with the way I describe things. I did include the uncorrected transcript of the meeting in the folder for people that names are, you have to sort of figure out who's talking about who was recognized, but it's got some pretty interesting back and forth. It was really interesting. And one of the issues is, I think there are two substantive things. One was Este's proposal as redefined by Sarah and Carlos on video streaming of APA. But I thought the more meaningful discussion was introduced by Andrew and his comments about how do we bring the new generation of volunteers to programming and also to leadership, but we didn't get to the leadership part. But it was a really interesting discussion about how do we bring new voices onto the airwaves when we've got, a limited number of hours in the day. And some of the issues are, do we break up the 3-hour blocks to 2+1? Do we have mentoring programs? Nate has a mentor proposal that he's put on, and a lot of this gets to, there'll have to be a lot of back and forth between the futures group and
Yep, and the
programming, because
committee, yeah.
it have to
Close
go through
collaboration.
years. So,
Mhm.
so I turn to you now. Anything you want to say about this?
I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of things to be done and on our to-do list as a programming committee. And I am a newly minted chair, so with that in mind, just still trying to get my footing and figure out what from an administrative perspective it even looks like. So as I get to know this role, first thing I'm going to do is figure out what priorities are. So just gathering this information, and pulling this together and making these lists, and then closely collaborating with the board and with other committees as well, to make changes happen. So so in summation, there is a crap ton to do. And so we got to figure out what we want to do first, and we'll bring it back and we'll let you know.
And at some point, I mean, there is a clear there are two competing interests between the voices and programs that our legacy audience has come to know and expect and support for the last 50 years, and the audience of the future, which doesn't exist yet. And how do we get the new without losing the old? And that's
And
the competing interest that we're gonna have to figure out.
yep, we're excited to have those conversations for sure.
Okay. Anybody want to chime in on any aspect of this? Now would be the time.
I have two
Yeah.
quick comments. One, as to the mentorship, I've done some of that informally, and I'm always glad to do it. So I just, I saw your proposal, it looks fine to me, but it doesn't even have to be, okay, once a month or whatever. Second, I have long believed that to be a true community radio station, we must offer more opportunities for communities, members' voices to participate in and have their voices on our station. I do think that concept is antithetical to people who have had shows for 30, 40, and more years. Some of them are beloved. Some of you may be great fans of them. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, just saying. Truly believe in a community station, and they can be eased out. Okay, guests once in a while. Look at what Bill and Bobby Malone have been doing. I think it's a great example of allowing new people into country while still preserving these beloved voices. So I just gotta say that this is not a new thought for me.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments on this?
I have a quick comment that I think I agree with that. It's something that I keep thinking about. And in other places where I've been, there's always that nervousness to letting institutional spaces or shows go. But from the other perspective, it's also an opportunity to reinvent the identity of the radio station. It's a great way of integrating, I think, not only new or other communities, but new younger generations. And this is a conversation that I had with also with Esty at some point. And in my experience, when you let go one of these shows, it has to be in a very gentle, easy way, but it's an opportunity to create something that could be a substitute, you know, and something that could be as important and as you know, as representative of the radio station. I think, you know, there's so many talent in the city, and there's so many creativity in the city that I think we should have the capacity to make that transition and also to create new audiences. So, you know, I think from my perspective, it's a great opportunity to reinvent what a community radio station should do, and integrate new, maybe at this point, new members of the community that 30 or 40 years ago were maybe not even existed around here. And so I think it's a great opportunity. That's how I see it.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is that I would very much like to take into account what the listening audience wants to hear on WORT, in addition to what potential volunteers want to play on the radio, because I think that a station with 50 years of history is made better by having voices who have been here for, in at least one case, Rock and John, 50 years. I think that's to our credit, and I guess I'm just really arguing in favor of a listenership survey, or some sort of some sort of way of doing this judiciously, and not just saying, well, you've been on the air for 10 years, time to go. And I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't think that's what either Jeff or Carlos are saying. I just wanted to speak up in favor of not completely throwing out the old only to have the new. That's what commercial radio stations do, right? They grunge becomes unpopular, so they switch to new metal. And yeah, obviously I'm using an example that's like 30 years out of date, but
It's a good one.
whatever. I'll shut up.
Julia, there was a spirited discussion between Rick and Sybil on this listenership survey. Can you tell us anything about?
So we do have a listenership survey in the works. It's been on our plate for some time. Shali was working on it, and so it kind of got tabled when Shali stepped away. And then we focused on other requests, such as our process flow for landing on new shows, how we vet show requests, and then also this recent request as to what our roster looks like. But we are going to return to the listener survey. We're going to bump that to the top of our list, if not close to the top, because yeah, that should be our priority. So we will return to it. And there's been offers for collaboration from some folks here on that effort. So thank you very much, folks, to help make that happen.
And a quick add, we will never get through a listenership survey, which I support, by the way, I think it should be done, but we will not get responses from people who, perhaps because there aren't certain members of the community on our airwaves, aren't listening to our station. We'll never know. And those are the opportunities I think Carlos was talking about. You know, how do we find those people? Sometimes it might take a risk.
Also, one last comment, if I can. I think to talk about specific ways of doing this, I would try to integrate precisely the people that have been on the air for all these years to this conversation and see what they think. You know, if the people that have been hosting shows for decades, what if they take the lead in selecting maybe someone that could have some kind of transition in that space that they agree with, someone that is younger. you know, and that could be, I think, a very, very smooth way of, I wouldn't even call it changing the just changing the face of a show that's been on the air for so long, and that could rejuvenate that's what's going on with Los Madrugadores, because it's the show that I host. I'm the new host there for a year now, but it's a show that's been going on for 20 years. That's been moving from people, just from different people.
Do you think the identity of the voice, if the program stays the same? I mean, if it's not, if Saturday from 6 to 8 is still oldies music, it's just not Rock and John, that doesn't accomplish any outreach to a new community. It's gonna be the same music, just with a different host.
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily.
Yeah, each host puts their own spin on it,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want to add to what Carlos was saying. Please finish though. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I mean, I think, imagine that in that same show, you know, I keep going back to the Spanish, but imagine that they select someone that could add Spanish dimension to that show, you know.
Okay.
There's been rock in Spanish since the 50s too, and it's something that could, you know, continue with that same tradition, but adding a new, or no, you know, not from that age, you know, not from that time, from something that it's happening right now, but continues with the same style or the same rhythm, the same, you know. It's just an idea. What I'm saying is that, just to finish the idea, to finish the thought, is that I think it would be essential to integrate all these hosts that are so important for WORT to this conversation and see what they think. How would they, you know, think of doing that transition? Or I mean, I don't know if they're very territorial about their shows, or maybe they are.
I think
I
they're
don't
all
know.
different.
I've been in that situation of having to let go a show and nothing happens, you know. This radio station continues. Anyway, that's the
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that it comes back to the mentorship program as well. I don't know who would own that, who would lead that initiative necessarily, but I think that we should really put effort into that. I feel that these folks that have been around for quite some time, these legacy folks, and maybe do have some defensiveness or animosity towards changing their show or stepping away to any extent, one day a week or one day a month or what have you. I think if those folks were able to be the mentors in this situation, that it would help them feel more comfortable letting go of any type of space that they own. They would feel like part of their legacy is living on and that they are valued in what they can provide to new folks that would fill that space. Would really help to close a lot of gaps between those two groups, between newer folks and legacy folks. So I think effort should be put into the mentorship. If we could, I think we should survey existing legacy folks and everyone. But I think that if we could put a lot of effort into the mentorship, it would go a long way, especially if we can get buy-in from those folks to mentor themselves. I think it would, yeah, be a game changer.
I mentored myself off of Pan Africa.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it was fine. We got great young African voices on there, and I'm pleased as punch.
That's the example I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I love the different flavors on Pan Africa every Saturday. Because
Sound-
from week to week, you don't know what you're gonna hear. And it's great.
Sounded like Chuck France
I
had.
would also add the new infusion of Miss Nikki and DJ Delirious on Soul Sessions on Saturday morning. You know, that show has evolved too, yet still retain the same devotion to, you know, 60s and 70s and even 80s soul music.
same thing with Los Madrugadores. It's the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Playing new things that are.
Everybody's
phenomenal.
bringing in their own box of records.
What?
Everyone's bringing their own box of records that are their
Yeah.
favorites, you know?
Right.
And it's just, it's beautiful.
This might be a good segue to talk a bit about the mentor, to the extent that you've got it as fleshed
Yeah.
out as you want.
Sure. I guess, yeah, to maybe give a little bit of a programming staff person's perspective here. I think that there are shows that are that take a fair bit of staff time because there is not a person who is successoring, who's not there's a person who could be a mentor, but they don't have someone currently as a mentee. And it would help me a lot to be able to go to that person if I said, this was a board project. I have, you know, it's in the volunteer handbook that this is something that we expect from a programmer. There has been, oh yeah, so maybe a little, wasn't quite prepared for this, but there has been a show where I have been sending volunteers. They're interested in the show, they like the show, and they've been bouncing off the show. The person who generally runs it has not been super easy for them to work with. Nothing to the point of like anything, you know, that needs to be brought up here in that regard, but like it has made that show harder to manage for me. And I think made the show maybe not as good as it can be from a programming perspective. It's maybe a bit of a side thing, but it would help me be able to go to that volunteer and be like, look, we have this policy in place. We would really like you to try to integrate these voices into your show and not treat them like they're here to do your social media. And that had that board backing could help me in those sorts of situations. So that's sort of why that proposal got written. And then Andrew brought it up and I was like, well, if someone's going to talk about it, I should probably present it. So it was maybe a little half-baked, but I felt like it was important to, with the conversation as it was going.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I wonder, because it disturbs me that you've had this experience, honestly. And because if Sybil's ever asked me to mentor someone, I would just say, sure, of course, you know. And so I think a more general expectation that if you were asked by your staff supervisor to mentor a new, you know, a learning host or whatever term we want to use, depending news, music, whatever, the answer just should be yes. I mean, with reasonable notice and all that stuff. I mean, I only say that in light of your 1 every 4 weeks or whatever. Like, will there really be that many mentees? And I don't want you as staff to be in a position of, well, the board said 1 every 4, but really it's just whenever we have one, you know. That's why I just wonder, I'm fine with doing a board. We need like a motion that, you know, hosts of radio shows should honor their staff supervisors' requests for mentorship if and when they happen. That's my motion, I guess.
I like that.
It's just a general, like they just should do it.
Is this ready? Well, first of all, I want you to tell them that you're not talking about me.
It's not.
Okay,
If he did, if he was, that was the straightest face ever.
No, actually, I think BookBeat is an advantage of a system I really like.
Yeah, remember, I stepped away from BookBeat and it is now a collective,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Phil's his hand up.
Is this ready for us, or do you want to take it to committee?
I'm happy to hear feedback. Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, do you have something that you want us to vote on tonight, or do you want to take this to the futures group and maybe programming and finesse it? It's up to you.
I don't know. I honestly haven't thought about it.
Okay, yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of recommendation that Carlos said about really engaging with legacy hosts, et cetera, having them involved, I would prefer to not have a board directive tonight about something that we haven't even really reviewed, et cetera. So I think I think there's a lot of interest in this direction. Let's flesh it out. And also let us include and engage legacy folks where it might impact.
And I think we also need to
Here,
involve
here.
Sybil in this, because the most direct application is going to be in music, not in news and public affairs.
Yeah.
Can we get Phil's
Phil?
thoughts?
Oh, yeah, Phil, I'm sorry, yeah, Phil.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I just want to say, I did like what I was reading about the mentorship idea as a proposal. But I'm gonna be real honest, finding out that it came about because of one problem volunteer really is,
That's not true.
That is incorrect.
Well,
This came about
okay.
because of Andrew's conversation, and then while formulating this, I was thinking about why this would be useful, and that came to my mind as an example. But this was not a response to that.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no, that was okay. Okay, I think we have a sense of the body that yes, new voices are good. Yes, a mentoring program is good. And we're gonna wait to get more details and take it to the committee and proceed from there. Okay, then just if there's anything else on the futures group, we have, as I say, do you want to say anything about I'm not exactly clear what it was we approved regarding the APA thing because,
I can speak to that if you'd like. Yeah. So we're planning a pilot video streaming thing. I think we're going to start with just pulling the video from the computers. It'll be a very low impact. Mostly we're trying to do it so that we can figure out our workflows for video editing and video distribution, which are bigger lifts. I don't think that will be easy, but hopefully just like getting the raw audio, we're picking the easiest path of that, or sorry, raw video. And then we'll go from there. But
and this will be this will not be live, or will this be live?
live streamed?
Yeah,
No.
okay. Okay. And I'm coming up with a way to do book beat with just.
Yeah, and
single
we
camera.
encourage the volunteers to do their show.
Yeah. Okay, and the rest, as I say, we had a really good discussion on this, the new voices thing, which I may or may not have adequately commemorated, but the transcript is in the file, in the folder, and it's pretty interesting. Then if there are no, and then and there are no further questions on that, we'll go to, what do we call this now? We're not calling these individual staff reports. What would
We skipped engineering.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, engineering. Does anybody have anything on the engineering work group that they want to raise or call attention to? It's not. Then moving down to the staff reports. Doug, anything you want to say about first yours and then any of the others? And then
Read them and rejoice. We're all working real hard.
Thank you.
Oh, and I would also just say, if you're a fan of folk and country music, come to the Burr Oak on Saturday. Show starts at 1 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, there was something that Susan mentioned in her report about the idea of staff annually updating their digital job binders. And while I realize that technically the 2025 evaluations have already become, I think this is a suggestion that the board, or at least the personnel committee, should move forward with. And I don't think there's any time like present to sort of begin to formalize this in the upcoming evaluation.
She only said that because she's leaving. No,
Just pass this by. I think this is a worthwhile conversation to have at personnel committee meeting. It doesn't feel ready for the whole board to consider it. So I'm not pulling you off too far, but I know our list is getting longer for what's on the next personnel committee meeting, but we'll figure out the timing of things as we put our meeting together. That's my opinion, and certainly a discussion with staff at some point, but I'd rather the personnel committee kind of figure out what it needs and wants first.
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss this on a staff level and agreed that we all need to have current and up-to-date job binders. I know that Nate discovered some things in Shelley's that was missing. Because I mean, when you're exiting, there's all these other things you have to do too. And I think she just figured you were capable enough to finish us off. But as for the rest of us, I speaking for myself, mine is complete and up to date with very specific instructions how to do every single aspect of my job. So
Thank you for that.
right.
The lottery.
But I've always, but I'm, I like to keep things together.
But back to your report.
I'm an organizational freak.
And thank you for sending out that note about the things on the website. What kind of response?
Oh God, yeah. Like, okay, we should touch on that too. I knew there was something else. Thank you for reminding me. So after a lot of discussion and negotiation with fellow staff, I put forward a a new revenue stream possibility on our website, which is spots within our website articles. I added a graphic on the feedback from Brian Standing mostly. I mean, the overall response was very positive from our volunteers. Brian had a couple of concerns, one which had already been addressed, because the first day we had failed to put the word sponsored underneath, so it kind of looked like it was part of the article,
Yeah,
right?
visually.
So we fixed that visually, so now people know that it's a separate thing and they just skip it and can keep going down here. The other was letting listeners know, so I did make a new tile today, which Tom has now uploaded in blue, and it's titled, "Why am I seeing this?" And it has a big question mark, and it just explains that we need to find new revenue streams to make up for the loss of CPB funding. This is one way, since our volunteers have done such a great job, and staff, making our website a go-to place for local news, local stories, music streams, all of that. We have over 27,000 unique users a month, which is incredibly marketable. After talking with Tone Madison and their representative, looking at Isthmus rate sheets, you know, and very other comparable news organizations in town that feature website advertising. We all agree on staff, and I'm sure on the board and volunteers, we do not want our website to turn into a commercial looking website. We do not want stuff running down the sidebars on the main page, pop-ups. Like, we're not doing any of that. So all I'm proposing is a single ad. I'm not even calling it an ad because we're calling it business website support. So they get some display space for their donation to the station. I talked with our auditors about this. This way we do not have to pay taxes on the income because it's not advertising income, as long as we don't use advertising language and don't call it advertising. It's underwriting on our website.
So a rose is not necessarily a rose. This is great.
So yeah, so the rate I've started with is $200 a month, which is actually lower than Tone Madison or Isthmus. It's a really reasonable rate. I'm considering offering an even special discount to our current underwriters to get them on board in the beginning. If they want to do it as an add-on to their on-air underwriting. So that pitch is yet in the works. I have completely revamped my media kit to include website tiles as well as the app tiles and banners and screen takeovers. We are allowing a screen takeover if anybody buys it, but only on the app. And that's only after they hit play. It shows up until they tap it and then it goes away. So that's where things are at. So I'm in the middle of working on 7 different events simultaneously. I'm also trying to get my pitch out for this new media kit. I vetted it with Tom and Adrian to just kind of look it over, make sure everything's spelled right, make sure I didn't say anything wrong, especially regarding like what happens and how they get the ad, the sizes, all that. So now that I have a final media kit, I can send out the email push to current underwriters, a separate push to lapsed underwriters that have stopped underwriting with us within the last 5 years.
This is exciting. We like this.
Good. I'm glad. I've been working really hard on it.
Where lie the authority to say somebody is not an appropriate underwriter or advertiser? I keep getting these emails from somebody who wants, we'd like to post this sponsored content, and if you won't take the content, can we have a link to our gambling site?
Yeah, no.
No, but
No.
is that a day-to-day operation or is that a policy choice?
Well, the policy already exists.
Okay.
And so I follow our underwriting policy
Okay.
for whether or not it's online or on air. I will not accept website ads from non-local businesses,
Okay.
large corporations, or any business that's involved in a labor dispute.
Okay,
That's word for word what our policy is.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we're all happy to see new media get outreach.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they can both feed each other too. The other nice thing that's attractive to businesses is I can actually track how many people have seen their spot. I can track how many people have clicked on it.
So,
And I get all the analytics that are not available for on-air listenership.
so in other words, before you go to bed every night, go to the website, go.
Hell yeah. Yeah, don't worry until I get paid once. For now, don't worry about it.
Drive up those numbers.
But even the Tone Madison one that we're doing is a trade out. So this is how the whole thing started. Tone Madison reached out to us and wanted to do a trade out for a website ad. And I said, that sounds fantastic because their market is a little younger than ours. They have a very different audience, but there's crossover. So there's really good opportunity there for cross promotion between Tone Madison and us. And I thought it was a win-win. And I think we all agreed on staff. So that was kind of where the whole conversation started. And then I had to figure out a way to actually make it a reality. But
Do we have ads on Tone Madison now?
Yes.
yes,
Yeah, I'm looking.
we're right there on the right-hand side. We actually have
yeah, I
a
do.
main page sidebar on theirs. Yeah,
I love that.
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And Tone's great. Yeah, this is a big deal to be able to.
It
create
is.
that.
No.
Yeah, it's a great trade out. But you know, that too, other people seeing Tone Madison on our site when they go and they're like, ooh, I want to be there now too. It's attractive to potentially paid on underwriters on our website. So, and it also helps support the work of what everybody does to make the website happen.
Cool.
So
Thank you. One other question on this Madison Magazine thing, are they actually letting us write the copy?
yeah. Yeah, Amy loves me. Yeah, so it's Madison Locally Sourced Magazine, which is formerly Madison Essentials.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different magazines. So it doesn't have the distribution of
Yeah.
Madison Magazine, but it's still out there and
Yeah.
it's like free everywhere. So
And it's pretty.
yeah, and Susan's working on the content right now. So
Cool.
I have to bug her early next week about it because we have a deadline of the 29th of August. So she said she would, because she's just so damn good at that type of thing and writing that kind of copy. And then staff is all going to take a poke at it. So we're actually going to create it collectively.
Okay, excellent. So we'll see you all at the Bur Oak on Saturday.
Saturday.
Anybody have any other questions of Doug on his report? Or, okay, Nate, anything on your report you want to?
No, I think it's all there. Happy field questions. Yeah, I put career in there because I think that's like a healthy collective. I really like the way that works.
Or the
I think
events
we're
or
doing
the
good
event
work
meeting?
of
No,
the collective that's doing a good thing.
Ralph sent out an email that you should have received. You should have forwarded it.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Nate? Any further thoughts on the post BBC and any developments on letters and politics?
No developments on letters and politics. I think they're going to wait for an announcement till beginning of September when they announce that Miss Jesuits is rotating out. We have about 2 months of unaired shows that we've been accumulating, so that is less time urgent than it might at first appear. We can just keep airing things we haven't aired before. Yeah, so the BBC one, I mean, with Tom tomorrow, I'll go over sort of a tech run through of what this pilot program is going to look like, and hopefully I'll have more by next month. I hope to have a pilot program running by this time next month. So, see.
Between you and Grant, anything you want to say about Democracy Now and it's how we provide for it and post CPB world?
If we provide for it, it'll be out of general funds, not restricted funds, because we pay for it with restricted funds now.
There was a sense that I got from the finance committee meeting that people certainly believed it was important to keep Democracy Now.
It's much less expensive, isn't it?
So it's 2,500 yearly.
Yeah.
wow.
That's pretty cheap.
not-
Almost
It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Considering the amount of people that donate to it.
Yeah.
I have very few budget dials I can turn if
Yeah.
the
I understand.
cuts.
I understand. I just,
maybe I can just, in terms of the 2026 budget, I didn't mention this in the finance committee report, but that, the broad ask there is for exactly this reason, right? There's going to be a number of things that we're either going to really blow up our budget or we're going to make some cuts, some of them more painful than others. The ask from finance was to have a balanced budget and then have a number of different things that the board will have to deliberate on. So we may likely see a proposal that might include cutting it. And then the board will decide, are we going to take that money out of reserves or are we going to cut democracy?
I think
Now?
that makes
So
sense.
that's kind of the general plan. So there will be opportunities for everybody to weigh in, and collectively as a board, we're going to have to make some hard decisions.
Yeah, so I'll be preparing different scenarios
I like
in the
that
budget
process.
document and having several versions depending on, yeah.
Anybody have any other comments or questions regarding any of the other staff reports? Did you want to say anything about your thought about a collective report as opposed to?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little bit aligned with some of our previous conversation about what we should do with the staff reports, whether they should be public, on the agenda, et cetera. I like what Tanya said at the kind of close of our previous conversation. I was going to suggest something similar that I think as long as they're, I think whatever we put on our agenda, kind of creates an expectation for people that have access to the agenda that they should see what's on there. So if we want staff reports to not be, on the agenda, I actually think that could be fine. We could have a standing item, something like, questions on staff reports, and then just simply have them made available. We can all review them. So that's sort of one option. The other thing that I was thinking about is, I'm trying to use this lens of like, okay, if we had a station manager, how would it work? And there would likely be a sort of station manager report that would be some kind of a summary of different things from the different departments and maybe just the highlights, like, okay, board, we're not going to give you every staff person is not going to give you a full report out, but here are the highlights, or here are the things we really want you to be aware of, or here are the sort of questions, et cetera. So one way that we could accomplish that is to sort of transition away from individual staff reports and have a collective sort of staff report to the board that the collective could decide, here are the key points that we want to share with the board. So that was the idea for consideration.
Jeff?
My quick reaction is I don't think there are many processes here that could arguably be broken or could be fixed or improved. I don't think that's broken. I like getting each report. I like reading it thoroughly. I don't feel like, oh, gee, how is this connected to somebody else's report? So I don't see a problem. I'm not saying your idea is necessarily bad, but why muck with something that's, I think, working?
My reaction as a staff member, I guess, is just that it would be more complicated to collectively decide what to include and what not to include. Where each director now has the responsibility to decide what's important to include in their own department. And I think that may be more valuable than just a short. I'm worried that stuff would be not included that the board really should know about. We try to keep them as succinct as possible because I know there's been complaints in the past about them getting lengthy. So we are trying to be concise and succinct. So I guess just thinking about that conversation on a month-to-month basis of what do we, I mean, we already do that once a year with the annual report, and honestly, we just tack them together and do that. But I think it would be the same thing, really.
Have we approached a consensus on whether or not the reports themselves should be either just in the folder or also linked on the agenda? I mean, is there any functional difference to people's access between being just in the folder and being linked on the agenda?
Well, I mean, the only two people who aren't either board or full-time staff are Mary Joy and Dave. Dave is a emeritus board member. I don't know what that means regarding what his access or shouldn't be. And Mary Joy, who
Has to have it.
Who has to have it to upload financial reports, yet knowing how busy Mary Joy is, I highly doubt Mary Joy will ever read a staff report for any reason. Because she's got her own things to worry about, and that's really what she sticks to, you know.
So is the only functional change that we're gonna do is that we're gonna ask staff to provide reports on the action items by Wednesday, and everything else is gonna stay the same?
We're also asking chairs, committee chairs to get it
And
in by
actually,
Wednesday.
yeah.
That was not well, and I'm comfortable with having our committee chair reports. I mean, we don't have the same kind of, but even that, don't you have, like, for example, finance committee met today? Don't we want that report?
It's
I
there.
think we do,
It's there.
or
Yeah.
yesterday or whatever.
Yeah, I have a question. Oh God, what was my question?
That was your question.
No, I'll come back to it. I'll skip me. The hell's the question?
I want to say, I thought.
I've been
the
working
committees did a
here
good
way too
job
long
of
today.
Putting getting.
Well, and
reports
thank
in.
whoever, probably you, put my additional grant, maybe somebody put it
Oh,
to a link.
now I remember.
Appreciate it.
So then let me get this right. Is the expectation then that any agenda items that come up between Wednesday and Wednesday are held until
No,
the
no,
point in
no,
the
no,
meeting
no,
when
no.
you say,
No.
are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
No,
I mean,
see, if something comes up on Thursday or Monday, let us know on Thursday or Monday. Don't wait till Wednesday.
yeah, I just wanted to make that clear that in my
Yeah.
mind, so I can take it to staff.
We would like action items by Wednesday so we can adequately vet them, but if something comes up after that Wednesday, don't hold it till 5:59 on the following Wednesday. Let us know on Thursday or Friday or Monday, this came up. It wasn't in our,
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to make that clear.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
are people good with that? Yeah, Tanya.
I want to be really clear on the deadlines for staff reports coming in and have them be stuck to. There's certainly one person who's been late every single month this year. And this month we had 3 people who had late reports. They were a day late. Now, depending on how people schedule their time, a day late isn't a big deal. But there have been times where reports don't come in until the day before the meeting. And I've already done my prep and I don't have time set aside to look at this stuff anymore. And I need to know that we're actually committed to having these reports done on time.
I can say that in several staff meetings, I have expressed the urgency and desire of the board to have reports on time. It bothers me greatly when it's not adhered to. Because it's not just that they're not listening to me, they're not listening to any of you either. And it's frustrating to be caught in the middle of that scenario.
Yeah.
And it's an aspect in the evaluation. People should know that it's something that the personnel committee
Oh, yeah. I
takes into
mean,
account in evaluations.
it is an expectation.
Those guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Doug. Phil.
Yeah, I was just gonna say in light of Tanya's comment that maybe it's worth mentioning to staff that this can become a disciplinary issue. If
Happy to
It
pass
needs
that
to.
on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if the board feels strongly about it to go to the point of disciplinary action, I am happy to pass that on because I'm as frustrated as
It
you are.
it has certainly been a matter in evaluations, and whether or not it would be a matter of discipline is, to be seen, but yeah.
Right.
I've been noticing and tracking.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know you, Tanya.
I mostly just wanted to see if we're able to circle back to that last item that we deferred,
On the,
executive committee, the proposal.
sure.
Mhm.
Oh, wait a second, Julia.
Just one last thing. So could I get clarity on the links in the agenda for the chairs and where that goes to and when, and if I have access to edit myself?
Okay, okay, let's revisit the
Or just
executive.
tell me who
commi-
to email, or
I'm
I just
yeah,
want to know.
Yeah, no, we need to revisit it because as it stands now, the executive committee's recommendation is that the the current policy says that I'm in charge of the agenda. We thought it shouldn't be just me. We thought the executive committee should accept the responsibility. But the question is, should authority to amend the agenda be limited to the executive committee, or should people be able, I mean, the functional bit of how it's actually linked. Now, is there any, Grant, were you envisioning that directors would not be able to, on their own authority, put something in the folder, or just that they would not be able to link to the agenda?
One of my goals is that we should get to a place at some point where we actually do need to keep our sort of formal records, and this is the agenda, and here are the things that in my opinion, attachments need to be included with that. So I think we need to get to a point sometime when we can say, here is the June 2025 agenda and all of the things that were submitted that are part of that agenda, and that they don't change, they don't disappear, they don't get updated. And so if, I don't know if other people agree with that, I think that's good normal record keeping practices, and we do have a responsibility to have those records. So my goal is to get to a place where we have that. If a lot of people have access to edit, even unintentionally changing things, it's not good record management practices.
Okay,
So
yeah, but my question is there's a difference between putting something in the folder
yep,
and linking it to the agenda.
correct. So, but I still don't, if we're not linking, I don't understand if reports are attachments of the agenda or not. And if they are considered part of, in my world, you have an agenda and you have all this stuff and it's an agenda packet. And all of that stuff is the record of what people were using to deliberate. I don't understand if the will of the body is to go in that direction, or to say reports are really not part of the agenda. We might have a new item that says we'll talk about reports if there's questions. And if so, they can go in a folder, and if they're not part of our formal records, then I don't think it really matters.
That's why I thought this was going to be revisited. It sounded like Nicole wasn't even at the executive committee meeting when this was discussed. And I don't feel like it's ready for prime time. I will say, as a user, forget my role as committee chair, because I'm not even sure I know how to link a thing in the agenda, but good. But I'm sure I can learn.
Yeah.
But as a user during a meeting, I absolutely like having reports linked, because I like to look at them while we're talking, and rather than going back and finding them in a folder, et cetera, I can also do, but it's much more cumbersome. So just as a user, I like that.
Phil had his hand up, but it's down. Phil, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what if the approval of the minutes? So for example, we approved the July minutes as part of this meeting. What if approving the July minutes means approving the July agenda? Everything that is linked to it, it gets saved as PDFs that can't just be opened up and then changed. Does that satisfy the record keeping?
I think we should finalize recommendation as Jeff suggested. I think we should table the trying to push ourselves to a final conclusion right now. And
So-
Zach should revisit all the feedback from here and come back with a updated proposal.
Which are we going to do prior to the
Yeah, we can
preparation
send out
of the August meeting, of the September agenda?
I think that would be fair.
Okay, so the executive committee will schedule a meeting in time for us to give you a new recommendation on how we're going to deal with the September agenda, because obviously we're not there yet.
I would like to simply point out in response to what Phil said, there actually, and to be aware of, just like in the minutes we approved in July, in our standard agenda, which is normal in any organizational board meeting, we have a adopt the agenda item right at the beginning. So in fact, in my opinion, the agenda is not final until the board adopts the agenda. I have no problem with advance notice. I think it's a great idea. It's in our policies, et cetera, but it truly isn't final until we adopt it. So I want deadlines adhered to, et cetera, but if shit comes up, I think we should be able to let people know, and it should be able to be linked in the agenda, et cetera.
Okay, so we'll take this back to executive and talk about some more and hopefully come up with something that meets everyone's needs, concerns. Anything else that anybody wants to bring up? Any of the other staff reports? Anyone has any comments or questions about, or any other activities? Got a lot of Ward 50 activities coming up. We've got Bill and Bobby. We've got yes, Phil.
Yeah, I wanted to circle back to the stuff that Grant was going to talk about his
Oh, I'm
proposal
sorry. Yeah,
regarding
yeah.
the planning session.
Thanks. Yeah, so there's a link in the executive committee report that laid out, I basically pulled information from the planning retreat earlier this year that had some pretty specific recommendations for next steps. There were things for the staff collective and there were things for the board. This is really focused on things for the board. I bulleted kind of the key takeaways at the end of that document, which were working towards a shared vision that reduces silos, alignment between board and staff priorities, clear goals, roles, accountability measures, better communication and trust building, and improved board recruitment and retention. A lot of the bulk of this proposal is in the next section called proposed action, vision, goals, roles, and accountability. I have a lot of background and professional experience in strategic planning and goal setting, et cetera. It seems to me that WORT would really benefit from having some more clearly defined goals in place. I think it's a primary, perhaps the primary responsibility of the board of directors to do that. I think it would be really helpful for staff to have more clarity around those priorities. I hear a lot about competing priorities. There's a lot of great ideas and there's limited capacity, et cetera. I think it's really important. So the proposal basically is a way that we could get there. It's a pretty skinny or light version of this. You can spend a lot of time and energy and money if you're hiring people to do this, but I think that we could get a reasonable kind of 5-year goal and kind of top level station goals identified over the course of really the fall of this year, if we were to engage in it. I have kind of laid out a sequence that would work. The big thing is that, you can't do anything for free. So this would take time. I don't think there's any way that we could sort of squeeze this into existing board meetings. And so the recommendation is to really try and break it out into 3 2-hour virtual meetings for the board that would be facilitated. I actually talked with Mike Connor, who was the kind of person that filled out the initial paperwork to start the station. I talked with him after the picnic and we've had some follow-up calls. He has a lot of background and experience in this area as well, and has agreed to be a volunteer facilitator if we chose to do this. I would work with him and really run this through the executive committee in terms of getting things prepared, et cetera. But looking to see if the board is interested and willing in doing that, and if there's agreement to kind of go down that path and commit to these 3 kind of virtual meetings in the fall, winter of this year.
I have to run soon, so I'll just say, I think it's a great idea in general. My biggest question, I don't know if until the report was received, staff had been consulted. And one of the things that at least I found valuable in the last retreat was interaction and communication with the staff. And at least, unless I misread it, I didn't see that in your proposal. And it might be that they aren't part of all of it, but I'm asking the question out loud at some point. Should there be intersection with staff? And
I can answer quickly. So in the first part, the preparation, my recommendation for this is that we really lean heavily on trying to collect stakeholder input, that it's not just the 11 board members that show up on day one and say, these are my big ideas, these are my priorities. But before doing that, we actually actively solicit stakeholder feedback. And so part of the plan would be getting approval on who are the stakeholders. Staff are a major stakeholder in this organization, obviously, and also have a lot of insights into the other stakeholder groups. So, the volunteers, obviously our music director and talk director, have a lot of insights into those folks. So the recommendation would be that, yes, they would be heavily involved, but the actual meetings themselves and the sort of formal process, once we have all of that, my recommendation is that we limit it to the board.
Okay, so I'm gonna respectfully disagree, at least to some of it. I think at least there should be more interaction, whether it's one meeting or parts of each meeting. I'd love to hear staff's input. I do have to go. I appreciate the work being put into it.
Other thoughts? Immediate reactions. All right,
The-
looking for a vote to, Move this
If we're
forward
gonna, I mean, this is an aggressive timeline. It's very likely that it'll slide by a month and maybe we don't get done until February. If we don't, if there's not general agreement around it right now, I'm not gonna start working on all the preparation. My plan would be to start working on that right now. But it'll take, I'm planning, as it shows here, August to October to really do a lot of that prep work and getting stakeholder feedback.
is it something that should be done before we deal with the budget crisis or after we?
I mean,
settle
on-
whatever's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, this should have been done many years ago, and every day or week or month we go that we don't have this, like, it's very difficult to set a budget and to fund priorities in a budget if we don't know what those are. And so the budget process itself isn't gonna really be an opportunity to figure out how much do we want to invest in creating access for folks? How much do we want to invest in new channels or distribution? How much, all of those kind of big picture questions, if we had answers to them, if we had, these are really the 5 things that WORT has to do next year, that can really help inform the budget decisions. So I don't think waiting for the budget is going to help this process at all. And I think if we did engage in it, it would probably actually help our budget deliberations.
Thank you. Phil?
Yeah, I personally would love to see this go forward using the aggressive timeline that Grant is outlining. However, realistically, I don't even know how that happens. The process of gaining adequate stakeholder feedback, I'd be surprised if we could do that before the end of this calendar year. And I guess that's where I'll pessimistically stop talking.
Other thoughts? Shannon?
Yeah, I think an aggressive timeline like this at this time of year, getting people together this much, especially in holidays and stuff, I think is maybe asking a lot. We're already a pretty aggressive in terms of time commitment board. I've talked to a few members of the board who, like me, are at capacity. And so the idea of 2 hours, 2 extra hours a month plus preparation time, I don't feel like I can commit to that in the way that we need to. I also have concerns, like Jeff said, with the staff not being central to this plan. I have a lot of concerns about how much we are heaping on the staff constantly. And without their voice as part of it, I just worry about it. So I am hesitant. I don't think you're being pessimistic, Phil. I feel similarly.
Thank you. Anybody else? Julia?
I think this is something that WORT desperately needs. We really do need to go through visioning exercises, and I agree that those need to happen in order to inform on things like budget and planning, period. Like, we need to start from bird's eye and then we need to work down. I also think this is too aggressive of a timeline, and also considering holidays, as Shannon mentioned. And I also agree with Phil that, yeah, I'm not sure how far we could get within this time frame. I think it very much needs to happen. I just don't know if this is realistic. And I'll also add that I think that staff should be directly involved as well. I think even if staff is directly involved in some way, it will somewhat shorten the time and the effort that has to go into soliciting all the feedback, stakeholder feedback, or at least making it easier to get direct feedback from one stakeholder group that is staff, and shorten a little bit of effort and time there. So yeah.
Anybody else?
I can't do anymore. Just after reading everything that executive committee, just trying to schedule that meeting made it very clear. Like, I am staring down the barrel of a month and a half of litigation stuff I have to help with for work. I have a full-time job. We are volunteers.
Right.
And I think maybe a start would be, what's the expectation of a board member as far as hours go? Because like my inbox this month was like anxiety inducing, because overall, like I can't, like I had to email you guys yesterday. I couldn't do another meeting. I can't sit through more meetings. And then also with the change to the agenda with everything, it's just like a lot. And I understand aggression. I understand we need to be looking forward because, you know, everything is so nebulous in the world we are in. But I think, yeah, like I agree with the staff should be way more a part of these conversations, and they should have been a part of the conversation about the deadlines before just kind of throwing that on them, because they got really good at Fridays for the most part, with some exceptions. Majority really good at Fridays.
90% gold star.
Hey, gold star and a copper coin. So I think, yeah, I can't, like, I saw 3 2-hour virtual meetings the first time and I like cried. Like I can't, like I just can't. And but if that is going to be the expectation of a board member, then respectfully, I will step down and give my space to somebody who can. Like that is fine. If that is what the consensus is, I'm not going to stop that from happening. Like I can quit. I'm not going to, you know, keep my, you know, engineering on Thursdays. Love that. But yeah, it's just simply put, I can't.
I think the takeaway is that we should have a maximum of 1 retired person on the executive committee, that 2 retired people on the executive committee creates too much work for the people who actually are still working.
I have really appreciated the dreaming bigger. And I don't have it. I don't have the time. I just don't have it.
And I think that also comes back to how we get younger people and new voices, is we have to respect time. We have to respect, I also just need like become potato on couch time. Like that is part of the whole thing. Like I joined the board because I do want to help the station, and I do want to be a part of this and be helping things move forward. But if the expectation from the get-go had been, you know, you're going to be committing this many hours a month in addition to the duty you already have a weekly thing, and then the committees you have to serve on, and like just some like, I love a plan, and I love like set an expectation. So if these are the new expectations, then that we start from there. So I'm not trying
And
to put
it's
the kibosh.
fair to evaluate yourself against the expectations
Yeah.
and see if you can meet them.
Yeah, and I think everyone should get that opportunity.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I was gonna
Karen.
say, thank you so
100%.
much for
Thank
saying
you.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if there is a point that we need, looking at introduction and purpose on the proposal, on Grant's proposal, I think if there's a point that maybe we should focus on, it would be the last one, which is making board participation more rewarding. I think that there's a lot of ways we could grow that. And I think, yeah, there might not be enough transparency around how much time is spent.
Just outside of meetings.
Yeah, yeah. These are all side topics.
I mean, that was on the application that I filled out, so I don't, maybe that's a newer thing on the application, but I mean, I was expecting that there would be a number of hours outside of board meetings. That's how it was framed on there, and so I understand.
It's 5.
Isn't it 5 to 10?
Yep.
Isn't that what
Yeah.
that says?
5's the
And-
minimum requirement.
I think we have to recognize that because of the structure, we do put a lot of managerial responsibilities on volunteer board members.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, every
literally our
other
job to
board that I'm on for the last 50 years, it's mainly staff, and we come in once a month and, okay, yeah, that looks good, and pretty much say yes. When we're doing a lot more managerial work than most volunteer boards do.
and that's why I feel urgency around this, is because of our organizational structure. Like, I didn't create this situation where we don't have a station manager, and many of these big things like personnel, like finances, and like strategy aren't assigned to a chief executive. And so they do fall to the board. And so we're either like not going to do it or, try and do it a little bit, or we're gonna find some capacity to do it. But it's inherent in this organizational structure. It's not a normal board in that regard. And that again is why I feel urgency around it, because it's very difficult for me to be on a board understanding these are the expectations in our bylaws, in our policies, in reality. And we aren't really organized to do that well. And it does take time. And I don't have, beyond this, I don't have specific expectations about how many hours everyone's putting into this. But as a board, I'm I guess struggling to see how we fulfill even some of the kind of base expectations that we own right now because of our organizational structure. And that's something we really need to grapple with. And I think also I would like to, if we're not going to do this, I think we really need to have a more clear and honest conversation about roles and responsibilities, because I have gotten nothing but confusion and many, many different opinions from people on the board and staff about whose job it is to do what. And, I think staff think that certain board people are overstepping. The board people think staff aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And there is a ton of confusion, and there's a lot of stuff that neither side is doing right now. And I feel a lot of urgency around at least identifying that and coming up with a plan of who's going to do it. Because right now it's not getting done.
I think we're gonna need to discuss this further. Maybe starting at executive, because we clearly don't have buy-in by the rest of the board at this time. We won't get buy-in for, I think, the full thing that you're proposing in any immediate future, but we need to, you're right, there's lots of stuff that needs resolution and clarification. And we're not there yet, but that's something that that's a conversation that we need to have, a sincere and frank conversation about expectations and responsibilities. I don't think we're ready to continue it right now, but it's got to happen. Because the structure is what the structure is. And
We're responsible for changing it if it's going to change.
yeah, and there will not be, we will not even discuss the station manager until, it's not on the table under the current bargaining agreement.
There's nothing that precludes a station manager in the bargaining agreement.
Yes, there is.
No, there isn't.
Let's
Let's look at that then, Stu, because that's not true.
I think the definition of the collective precludes it.
No way.
We can discuss it. I don't want to end on such a dissatisfying note. Is there anything encouraging we can say before we go? We're gonna have a great Saturday at the Burr Oak. Yeah, Phil.
I was just gonna ask if anybody knows a good joke.
Yeah.
I've got a terrible joke.
Sure. Go on.
Okay, here's it's a riddle. The riddle is this. Why does a chicken coop have 2 doors? Because if it had 4, it would be a chicken sedan. Chicken shirt.
Nice. I like that. I'm stealing that one.
I learned it from a drag queen.
Hell yeah.
Was that a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn this lovely meeting.
Any objection?
Good debate.
Second.
Oh, thanks, Phil.
4th.
My favorite is always pirate walks into a bar. Bartender says, "Sir, can't help but notice you've got a steering wheel in your pants." Pirate says, "Yar, it's driving me nuts."
Yeah.
So he's a British pirate.
Mhm. Grabs in the folder. Oh,